These are the jobs you may not see every day, but just know we're working hard to make Hillsborough County a better place to live, work, and play. Subscribe to our YouTube page for more great county-related videos, only on HTV. These are the jobs you may not see every day, but just know we're working hard to make Hillsborough County a better place to live, work, and play. Subscribe to our YouTube page for more great county-related videos, only on HTV.
You know what I like about my morning commute? It's time to reflect. Ponder those big questions. Who are we? Why are we here? Sometimes you just gotta take those bumps in the road and keep on moving forward.
Dude, you couldn't possibly be any more wrong. Stop the car.
That's deep. Like me. I can respect that.
Dude, it's a pothole. I could report it to Hillsborough County right now as a customer service report.
Good morning. I'm Melanie Williams as the Vice Chair of the HART Board of Directors and will be presiding today in absence of our Chair Smith. Welcome to the December 6, 2021 regular Board of Directors meeting. The meeting format is hybrid. We do have a quorum that's physically present at the County Center, 601 East Kennedy Boulevard, 26th floor conference room, and the rest of the board members are participating via communication media technology. Please look at the screens of your device where an image of the flag is displayed and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the Thank you. Not sure if I said this, but this meeting was called to order. All right, Ms. Pettit, will you please take the roll? Good morning.
Director Castor,
Here.
Director Frazier, Director Hudson, Director Johnson,
Here.
Director Kemp,
Here.
Director Knight,
Here.
Director Myers,
Here.
Director Overman,
Here.
Director Schisler,
Here.
Director Vieira,
Here.
Chair Williams.
Here.
You have quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We'll move on to the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes to this time from the November 1st, 2021 Board of Directors meeting minutes and from the special Board of Directors hybrid meeting on November 16th, 2021.
Move approval for November 1.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, I heard a move of approval for Commissioner Overman, and second was Commissioner Myers. Thank you. Ms. Pettit, will you take vote, please? Thank
Director
you.
Castor,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Kemp, Director Knight,
Yes.
Director Myers,
Yes.
Director Overman,
Yes.
Director Schisler,
Yes.
Director Vieira,
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you.
Move approval for November 16th minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman, motion, and second, Councilman Sisler. Thank you.
Director Castor,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Kemp,
Yes.
Director Knight,
Yes.
Director Myers,
Yes.
Director Overman,
Yes.
Director Schisler,
Yes.
Director Vieira,
Yes.
Chair Williams.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. All right, moving on to our public input. Do we have anyone for public comments at this time?
We have one signed up, but I do not see that this person has checked in.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a name?
The name is Magali Oro Fernandez. And I do not see her in the session.
Okay. We will move forward. Thank you. All right, we have several action items for the consent agenda. The Joint Strategic Planning and External Relations Operation and Safety and Finance and Audit Committee met on November 15th, 2021, reviewed the action items A through D, and recommended their approval to the full Board of Directors.
So moved
Second.
Thank you.
for the consent agenda.
Thank you. I have a motion from Commissioner Kemp and second from Councilman Schisler.
Director Castor,
Yes.
Director Hudson,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Kemp,
Yes.
Director Knight,
Yes.
Director Myers,
Yes.
Director Overman,
Yes.
Director Schisler,
Yes.
Director Vieira,
Yes.
Chair Williams.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. We will move to action items, number 5 on our agenda, and today the board's consideration for approval. Staff is bringing forward 4 actions. These items have not been previously reviewed by a HART committee. So, Ms. LeGrand, it's my understanding you're going to introduce each one of them, and we'll take one at a time, and we'll take the first one. 5A, resolution number R2021-12-55, authorize the chief executive officer to award contracts and task orders to HNTB Corporation, WSP USA Inc., EXP US Services Inc. for A&E General Consultants for capital projects in a collective not to exceed amount of $3 million.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, board members, and good morning, staff. Happy to be here this morning. We'll go through briefly these action items. So action item 5A, this was brought before the board in the past to get approval to solicit for an extension of our A&E contracts, which stands for Architecture and Engineering, and those are for capital dollars for programs where we look at designing or some capital investment, and we would use one of these firms in a task order capacity to help us advance some of those projects. So today we're asking for approval to award the contract to the 3 firms that have been identified in the resolution.
Thank you. Are there any questions to follow?
Yes.
Let's see here. Director Knight.
Thank you.
You're
Good
welcome.
morning, everyone. Just wanted to make sure that, you know, and also in the past that in things like this, we always bring it to the committee. Did it go through the committee first before you even get to here?
May I respond?
Yes.
So it went through the committee for the approval to solicit for the contract. Because we did not have the committee meeting structure to, for the award, we didn't bring this to the committee for the award portion, but for the solicit and to go through the process to put out RFP on the street as well as to interview, we did bring that whole process before the board, as well as also presented to the board that we had completed that process. For the permission to award, the reason why we're bringing this action item here outside of going to committee is because we've canceled the December committee meetings, and we'd like to engage this work starting at the beginning of the next calendar year, since we have several projects that we need to move forward. Otherwise, this would have gone through the December committee meeting structure.
And I understand, but I don't think that we should get in a posture of changing what we should be doing. So that's my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Schuster?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I too have some concerns with with issuing a $3 million award for various projects when we don't really know which projects they're specifically covering at this point. I was hoping to get committee review also prior to it coming to the full board. And I hope there's a way we could do that. This is a big chunk of cash, and we don't have that kind of cash laying around. So that's I know it's in the budget, but we still need to make sure that it's being done properly and in the correct way. I would like to wait on it if we could. I understand the urgency of trying to get it going, but I'd like for the committee to review it, or at least have more documentation and more information as to what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Thank you.
May I respond?
Yes.
Thank you for that comment. And since it's a task order contract, we don't have the specific task orders associated with the contract value. So it's a not to exceed amount, meaning that the total amount that would be expended in this contract would not exceed $3 million. However, there aren't a list of existing task orders to present before the board. To that point, we can bring the task orders in front of this group if that is something that you'd be comfortable with before we execute a task order. But this ask is just to get approval to give the final documents to the 3 vendors that have been selected so that we can actually execute the agreement. It does not have any specific dollars associated with any task orders because those have not been moved forward. We haven't developed the scopes, and we have not awarded individual task orders.
If I may, so we would have another opportunity to review these as we go forward.
Yes, you'd have an
Unacceptable.
opportunity to
That's
review the
acceptable.
actual dollars associated with the scope of work that we would be
That's
presenting.
good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. And that's why, and I'll just move approval, but because it was that type of contract, just kind of saying that these were the companies that we would be working with in the future, and it's been vetted to that, and there's no specific projects, and because I assumed actually that they needed to come forward through our budget and be approved at any rate, I'll move approval on this, because I felt comfortable with that.
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I think that what the solution to be to the questions you're receiving is that in the event that we don't have a committee meeting, then we expect a full presentation at the board. Because prior to last couple of years, you know, when we had items like this on it, the presentations were actually made at the board. And the committee got a presentation, but then we also received a presentation at the board. In order to simplify and process things more quickly and to respect the board's time, we've actually done a really great job of making changes. But when those changes cannot be met, for example, not having a committee meeting this time, and the apparent urgency of having this set of contracts in place in January, I understand why it's brought here. But I think it would be wise in the future that if we cannot address it at the committee level, that a full presentation be made at the board. That being said, I know we're trying to get it in place for January, but what is it that is of urgency for a $3 million contract that has to be addressed by January?
May I respond? So I think that's a great point, and we are prepared to do a full presentation. So if, Lena, if you can bring up the resolution, I can walk through the specifics of this and provide you with additional clarity. So first, if you...
Ms. LeGrand, just a moment. I think we have several questions. So before we move forward into the details of the presentation, I'd like to capture the questions so we can make sure that for the sake of time that we could cover everything at this point since we're getting a number of questions. And,
Thank you.
Ms. Pettit, I can't see if someone online has questions. And so, thank you. Mayor Castor, you're recognized.
I think all of my questions were answered, but I do agree with the $3 million to bring forth as the projects, as these tasks are presented, that those come back just in a briefing for the board as well.
Do we have anyone online with a question? Okay, thank you. Ms. LeGrand, right now we have a motion on the floor to approve. Commissioner Kemp, second by Councilwoman Shisler. Want to go ahead and provide some additional feedback as a result of Commissioner Overman's question?
Sure, definitely. So if, I don't know if it's on the screen, but if we see the actual resolution, it breaks down some of the specifics associated with the task order contract. So overall, you saw in your action item description what the task order is and the 3 firms that have been selected. So since it's a task order contract, the contracts will require materials and services, so that means that we're providing or preparing scopes of works for consultants to help us with maybe planning studies. For example, if we were looking at a rail study, we may solicit some support from one of these firms to help us manage that effort. Again, this would all be related to capital type projects. Some of the task orders may exceed $100,000. Of course, if it exceeds $100,000, we would come to the board because it would be beyond my signature authority. In addition for that, the funding that we have, $250,000 for the project, is available and budgeted for the first year. So what this means is that for our first year of the base period of 2021, that's what we have funded in our budget. So there isn't an expectation that we would really exceed that during this fiscal year. The period of performance for this contract is a 3-year base period with 2 additional 1-year options for a total of 5 years. So an initial 3-year contract is what we would be asking in this award, with the recognition that if we wanted to extend a 2-year extension, that we would come back and have a conversation that we'd like to do that and provide with details on why we need to do the extension. The contracts did not have a DBE participation or set-aside requirement. However, all task orders reviewed for this contract will be included or reviewed for a DBE, a sub-consultant opportunity. So I'll take a pause to explain that. The overall A&E on-call, the DBE, our overall agency DBE goal is 7%, but the way we actually calculate the DBE percentage being implemented is based on task orders, because that's when you're actually, awarding dollar amounts, right? So overall, you have a broad contract that just gives you the opportunity to go out and solicit work, but when we actually award a task order, that's when we specify what the DBE goal, and we have the whole form to ensure that that is what is actually done. So I did want to clarify that, and we thought it was important to put that there. And this solicitation was conducted using our request for qualification methods. So it was based on qualifications and not based on performance. So they just had to submit their quals to be able to provide architecture and engineering services, which is really time and material based. So what we're asking for today was for approval to move forward with awarding this contract. And what that means is that we would go back to the 3 vendors that have been selected and share with them that it has been approved to award this A&E contract, and then also establish the material, the forms and information as it relates to the task order process. And then we can come back to you in January to talk about what task orders we're looking to move forward. But at this time, it's really just to give us the opportunity to put the information together in a packet and start moving the process forward. So I don't know if there are any additional questions.
Ms. Pettit, will you take a vote based on the motion to approve from Commissioner Kemp and second by Councilman Schisler?
Director Castor,
Yes.
Director Frazier, Director Hudson,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Kemp,
Yes.
Director Knight,
No.
Director Myers,
Yes.
Director Overman,
Yes.
Director Schisler,
Yes.
Director Vieira,
Yes.
Chair Williams.
No.
Motion passes with Director Knight and Chair Williams voting no.
Okay, we'll move on to 5B, and Resolution R 2021-1256, authorize the Chief Executive Officer to execute a public transportation grant agreement between the Hillsborough Transit Authority and the Florida Department of Transportation to accept state block grant funding assistance for fiscal year 2022 in the amount of $5,878,606. I'll hand it over to you, Ms. LeGrand, for comments as well as questions from the board members.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Pettit, if you can bring up the full resolution so everyone can see it, and I'll walk through this one as well. So this is a resolution asking for approval to execute an agreement between HART and FDOT, and these are for our annual state block grant funding assistance. So for this fiscal year, we have an amount of, a total amount for the grant is 11.7. However, for our 50% match is $5.8 million. This is a block grant that is set aside for operating expenses. This is, again, something that we typically receive from FDOT, and it provides funding for operating and capital projects. However, we're going to be using these funds to reimburse operating expenses. Since it's a 50-50 match, as I mentioned, HART has to contribute $5.8 million for the program, and we're asking for approval to execute this agreement between HART and FDOT.
Move approval?
Thank you. Is there a second? Oh,
Question.
are you seconding or questions? Okay, thank you.
I'll second it to
Thank
entertain
you.
questions, and I have a question as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp, motion, and then second by Commissioner Overman, and question for
Yeah.
Councilman
How
Schisler.
is this allocated in the budget, the 5.8?
So in our budget, we allocate the grant funding, and this would be included in the grant funding that we use for operating expenses. So in our 2022 budget, we did take into consideration this grant funding.
Well, the funding in the revenue portion, right?
Yes.
And how is this going to be allocated through operating expenses?
So we look at the needs, so we don't have it, I would say it's not one-to-one connected with a specific operating expense, but what we do is once we get the execution of the award, we look to see what some of the operating expenses would be that we could assign to it. So it could be anywhere from, if we were looking to increase service or make some changes on a route, we could use these funds for that. If it was looking to make some adjustments to some of the services that we currently have, we could use it. Anything that would fall in the operating bucket. After this is awarded, the budget team would program it in a way based on our needs.
Well, there's a follow-up. Aren't there any strings attached to it for the block grant as to how it can be allocated or how it can be used?
No, the only strings that we have attached to this is that we have to, it can only be used for well, it could be used for operating or capital, but in this case, we're using it for operating, and that we just need to be able to show them as soon as we draw down on it that we have the local match. I did have a conversation with Ming Gao with FDOT on Friday to go through the process, and what he explained to me was that all we had to do was to ensure that we had the match money anytime we draw down or we, report back that we're using those funds.
This in the budget, we included $6 million in revenue from the block grant, correct?
Well, it would be more because we probably would have put in the budget the total amount, which is $11 million.
As long as they put the 11 million in there.
That is correct.
Okay, that's where I was
But then
getting a
we
little-
only,
That's where I was bumping into the wall, just 5.5. We really weren't counting for our portion of it then.
That is
Okay,
correct.
As long as I don't remember being 11 million in the budget, but I didn't go looking either. As long as the 11 million's in the budget, then it's all accounted for. Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Are there any more questions on Commissioner Overman?
Thank you, and thanks for clarifying that. So with this particular allocation and partnership we have with FDOT, it's primarily going to be used for operating expenses for service or service changes or service expansion, as opposed to capital investment?
So that is a great question. So for this cycle, the block grants are going to be used, this block grant is going to be used for operating expenses. For the next fiscal year, and this is something I also discussed because I wanted the same clarity, and that's why I spoke to Mr. Gao on Friday. Ming Gao and his staff, they're working to change the allocation of our block grants for the next 5 years to move from operating to capital. Since you are on the county commission, I was going to mention this in my remarks later, but we have been working closely with FDOT, and they have agreed to allow us to reprogram our block grant dollars toward the capital program so that we can use those funds towards our new heavy maintenance facility. So this is the last round of block grants that are going to be associated with operating costs, and then for the next fiscal year, which on the state it starts July 1, those dollars will become available to now be used for capital.
Thank
So
you.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that answers my question, but it also helps make the point that we are going to have operating revenues to be able to make that shift towards capital. And while we have not only the maintenance, but we have various different route changes that are coming in partnership with the build grant, the raise grant, and what's happening on Fowler Avenue, all of that's going to require capital improvement dollars to implement the mobility studies and the various different studies that are moving forward post-22. So I understand why that's happening, but I want to make sure our board understands we're going to have to make sure that we have revenue to replace that if operating funds are how we're using them this year. So thank you very much for making it more clear. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Pettit, I can't see the online. Do we have anyone asking questions online? Thank you. All right. Director Knight.
And again, thanks for the presentation, but did I miss something on this one also? Was it discussed in the committee meeting, Audit and Finance? Because I don't recall hearing anything about this, and that was the purpose of this committee. If we needed something coming in front of the full board, give you opportunity to do those things, but also if there's some adjustment or whatever, it's a good thing, 50-50 match. But my thing is on protocol more so than anything, that we follow what we said we would do.
May I respond? Yes, Mr. Graham.
Yes, Director Knight, you raised some very good points, and they're not taken lightly. In every cycle, when we have the information available to present to the committee, we present that information. In some cases, we receive information as, for example, to execute a block grant agreement outside of the traditional schedule for the committee meeting. So what you see today, one, I think if you were to go back and look at most of our board meetings for this calendar year, it has been, I would say, the minority of the time when you'll see items for action that have not come through the committee. And that's because we deliberately make sure that we take things through the proper cycle. In some cases, which I would say would be the exception and not the norm, we miss that cutoff time, not because we're not trying to get it in front of you, it's just that the timing that it comes to us is is not in keeping with that schedule. So what you see today are some of these 4 action items that are presented before you, depending on where they are in the process. Some of them have come through the committee for approval to solicit. Some have come to the committee for approval to award, but now it's coming to the board for approval to execute, and that didn't go through the committee. But we definitely understand your concern, and that's why we work diligently to ensure that everything does go through committee. But your point is well taken, and we'll ensure that we continue to try to get everything in front of the committee. And if we can postpone it, and we do this a lot as well, if it's not time sensitive, then we just take it through the next cycle.
Mayor Castor, you're recognized.
So thank you very much for that clarification, and the same for bringing up that point, Mr. Knight. I think that this may become an issue moving forward. So in an attempt to be very transparent, we do need, when we can't bring this to a committee, to have the briefings just as you're providing right now. I think that that's very helpful, not only to the board, but to the community as well. With this infrastructure funding that's coming out of DC, and from all that I've heard, some intentional attempts to bring that straight to the local communities, we're probably going to see more of this. And so that is probably a good idea if we can't make it into a committee, that there is a briefing just as you've provided this morning, so that, again, we can ensure the transparency and the confidence of the public that we are spending these dollars appropriately.
Thank you. I'll just comment, I am the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, so I believe we'll work together to make sure that we don't have this situation happen going forward, and we'll just connect, because we talked about all these, but in light of the conversation that's taking place here, we'll be more transparent and accommodating to make sure that we're all on the same page. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Ms. Pettit, I will ask you to take a vote, please, and read the results.
Director Castor?
Yes.
Director Frazier?
Yes.
Director Hudson?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Knight?
No.
Director Myers?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Director Vieira?
Yes.
Chair Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes 10-1.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to resolution 5C, resolution R 2021-1257, authorize the chief executive officer to extend the transit advertising contract VC000546 with Vector Media Transit LLC to an expiration date of June 30th, 2022. And we'll open it up for comments and questions. I'm not sure, it's not specifically.
I'll move approval, but I would like to ask a question or two.
Thank you, Commissioner Overman.
I'll second it, but I
Second
also have a comment.
by Commissioner Kemp. Commissioner Overman, you're
Thank
recognized for your
you.
question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is an example where we have a contract that is expiring at the end of the year, so we obviously need to extend it. And in the backup, it indicates that in order to prepare new specifications for solicit transit advertising services in line with the future HART advertising path. And I'm assuming that in June, or prior to June, that we'll be going out for RFP for these types of services. And the board will be advised as to the advertising strategy that HART will be adopting as far as moving forward. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Because they've done a really nice job. From what I understand, largely because of the human trafficking campaign, people do see these buses, and it does help not only when we use HART's logos for this information, but also when we're partnering with the community and businesses for bringing attention to the buses that are in our community. So I'm glad to see we're doing that. So in this particular case, I just wanted to make sure that we planned on doing an RFP, and we'll have an understanding of the scope of that RFP, maybe presented to the committee prior to that issuance. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
I understand that we're extending this because we're not really prepared to, deal with kind of re-looking at it. But I just want to say I'm very supportive of re-looking at it. I know we've had that conversation here before. I would like to see HART branded better, our buses branded with HART, our stops and branded with HART. And I feel like even unlike small other bus services in other communities, managed to do that, I think, in a way that works better than we've done it here. And I'm anxious to have it not have certain advertisements on our buses that, work for other things. And I know that our income derived from that is de minimis relative to, I think, what we lose in putting out there our HART branding. So I'm anxious to have it reviewed and look at what we'll be doing in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, also, thank you. Also, to extend to June 2021 is along with Director Kemp, talking about other things and on branding. Could we do up to June in case there's something else and it still on, have it ongoing? Do we have to go the whole 6 months? Up to.
May I respond? Yes. So thank you, Director Knight, for the question. The language here is asking that we can modify to extend the expiration date to June 30th of 22. However, if we execute a new agreement prior to the expiration date, the existing contract will end. So we were asking, if you want to change the language to add extend the expiration date to June 30th and maybe specify that if we get a new contract in place prior, that we would end the existing contract. Is that something that would be favorable? But the intention here is not to just let this contract run out to June 30th. It's just giving us additional time so that we can put a new procurement on the street and go through the process and award it to another vendor or two vendors. I don't want to say another vendor, just so that we can go through the competitive process.
Well, we got some great attorneys on our board, so what the pleasure on the verbiage.
Mr. Mandel, you're recognized.
Thank you. If you would like to be more specific in the resolution that indicates that that the contract would end either by June 30th, 2022, or upon execution of a new contract, that's language that can be added that would make that clear.
Commissioner Overman, do you want to restate your motion or want to move on? Oh, I'm sorry. Good. Excuse me.
I'm fine with the language as it stands.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to volunteer to second guess on the legal part, but on the advertising strategy, I know a lot of us are eagerly awaiting that. I would just ask that when that comes forward, that there be really a better understanding, like, what is the net income generated by advertising? Like, we see what the revenue is, but I think I'm curious, like, what is the cost of collecting that for a net, kind of full net picture, and also just what other jurisdictions are doing on advertising. I'm curious because obviously there is an informative, like, as of the human trafficking advertising campaign, but I'm just kind of curious how we would benchmark against our peers on advertising. That's it.
Ms. LaGrange.
Yes. So Director Hudson, thanks for the question, and that is a part of the process that we're going through. We know that in revenue we collect $1 million a year in our advertising. However, the cost to collect that is also a part of the process. And just really to understand if there are any other models that would generate more revenue outside of what we're currently doing. And then also the RFP, we did put an RFP on the street, and I guess I shouldn't say I guess, it was written prior to me getting here, but there have been some shifts in advertising that we've all experienced in our personal lives. So if you use a cell phone, depending on what you typically look at, you'll see some, alerts for advertisements that go on your phone and, if you log on your computer. So we, in our RFP solicitation, did not specify that type of advertising. So this gives us an opportunity to take a step back, really understand the whole spectrum of advertising as it exists today. The other thing that HART has that is of value and it's beneficial to us is that we do have Wi-Fi on all of our vehicles. So, for example, there could be an opportunity for us to have push advertising in our closed network to allow us, again, to generate more revenue. So this gives us an opportunity to really sit back, to do some peer analysis, and then understanding where the space of advertising is moving so that we can move into a more modern format than what we're currently doing.
Thank you, Director Husband. Thank you, Ms. LeGrand. Are there any more questions? All right. Ms. Pettit, will you please take a vote and read the report?
Director Castor?
Yes.
Director Frazier?
Yes.
Director Hudson?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Knight?
Yes.
Director Myers?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Director Vieira?
Yes.
Chair Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, 5D, Resolution R2021-1258, authorizing staff to proceed with solicitation and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to award a resulting contract for professional project management services and support for the HART Heavy Maintenance Facility Design Build Project to a successful firm for a 5-year term. Are there any comments, questions by the board at this time?
May I do the presentation first?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. LeGrand.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to walk through the presentation first, the resolution, and then provide some background. So as was alluded to for one of the previous resolutions, I think it was 5B, we have worked closely with our partners, and we're fortunate that we have received, I would say, a very collaborative approach to helping HART move forward with our heavy maintenance facility. Through this process, as I mentioned, we work with FDOT, and they were willing to allow us to repurpose our block grant funds from operating expenses to capital expenses so we can use those dollars to help build a new maintenance facility. In addition to that, the TPO also was willing to allow us to reprogram our tip dollars for our state of good repair dollars from bus facilities to the heavy maintenance facility. And then we also were fortunate for the county commission to agree to give us local matching funds up to $15 million to also help us advance our heavy maintenance facility and find the local match to support the FDOT dollars. And the city as well has contributed to helping us to get that local match completed. So through this process, if you just do the quick math, we've been able to, working with HART dollars, the city, the county, the TPO, and FDOT, to come up with $75 million to move forward the heavy maintenance facility project, which has been on our books for a fairly long time. Based on my analysis, I've seen that this has been something that has been targeted for the last 15 years. And in order for us to really move forward as we're going through the process, working through the TIP amendment to get everything changed, we'd like to put an RFP on the street to solicit a program manager. This ask is really just to get approval so that we can put the RFP on the street and put a scope of work together to have someone come in to help us really assess where we are as far as all the previous studies. There's been a lot of work done. So really coming in and looking at all of the work, and I would say doing, back in my day when I was on the other side, just doing a gap analysis, seeing what was completed, what is required to move a project like this forward, what have we done that we can still use, is there anything that needs to be refreshed, like environmental documents, any of those kind of items that are required through the federal process. And then in addition to that scope, we'll also be asking for assistance in helping us craft the scope of work for the actual RFP to do the heavy maintenance facility. We have great people internally in the organization, but we do see this as an opportunity to use some experts to come in to help us to provide information on what should actually be in that procurement document. HART would lead the procurement. I just wanted to be clear that we are not outsourcing our procurement activities. Our procurement director will be the point person in ensuring that we're following all of the state and federal rules, but we just want to solicit some additional support from the outside environment. The funding for this position, which we don't know how much it will be because we have not put the RFP on the street as yet, so we'll wait to get responses and then see, based on this responses, go through this competitive process, and then we will also negotiate those prices to ensure that it's something that it's appropriate to the scope and scale that we'd like to move forward. However, the funding for these services are available through a federal grant program that we currently have. So we won't be using any of our ad valorem dollars for this. We'll be using a federal grant that we already have that is purposed for the heavy maintenance facility. I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
I'd like to move approval. I also have some
Second.
comments to make.
Commissioner Kemp, thank
Yeah.
you for approval. And Commissioner Overman, second. And I will go to Councilman Schuessler first, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When you come back to us with that, see if, in the fact that you're having to get an outside concern to figure out what we've done in the beginning and where our gap analysis, do the gap analysis. When you come back to us, come back with a number as how much it's going to cost us internally in, your staff and what they're going to have to do to reinvent the wheel, or to not reinvent the wheel. What's it going to cost in our time and so forth, so that we get a better picture as to what the whole package is going to be. I would appreciate that.
May I respond?
Thank you.
Councilmember Schuessler, that is an excellent question. Sometimes the questions you ask, I feel like you have like a portal into my mind. But that is a question that I asked as well. So what we've done, and we've been working closely with FTA Region 4, and they've been very helpful, because the concern is that if we take staff away from what they're already programmed to do, right? And if you're looking at it in terms of a 2080, right? They're working full time. Now we have a new project that pretty much came out of nowhere, right? No one expected us to be in this position to have $75 million to move this forward. So there's a couple of things that staff, and I would like to give credit to Ms. Loretta Kirk for really doggedly approaching this, but there's something called a forced account that you can use through the federal government through grants. And what we have asked permission for is that if we can use the grant that we currently have to allow staff time to be charged to that grant. So what that does for us is, for example, if you have a staff person who's going to be dedicated to this project, their salary can be also a part of the grant dollars. So that's something that we're working on, and that will free up, if we need to hire additional resources, that we can do that, but it won't be an impact to our budget. So that is something that we are working with. We did get approval from FTA to be able to do that. Now we're just working through the process on exactly how that will work.
That's what I was hoping for. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kemp, recognize, please.
Thank you. I just want to say it is amazing work that you've done, and I think there is nothing, I have said this before, nothing more important in the entire region for moving people than to fix and expand and do everything we need to do to our operations and maintenance center, which is in dire need of a rebuild. Dire need of dealing with the flooding, with the building itself, and with the limitations it would make on us ever being even providing decent basic service. It's the number one thing in infrastructure that we have to do. And I'll say that, and I was just realizing, looking around the room, that I'm probably the only person that was on this board in 2017. I came on in December 2016, and in 2017, early in 2017, we were told that there was this critical need to do this, that there's nothing, nothing more important than this. I've been out there several times, that we couldn't really move forward. In fact, we were moving backwards as long as we had the flooding issues and the building issues that we had there. And then somehow, in some way, and I don't know why, but it kind of seemed to have fallen off the radar as a top priority and something that we couldn't grow and expand and meet the future with, without it. It seemed to have kind of disappeared from our priorities. So I can't tell you how strongly I feel and how grateful I am that you right away recognized in your first year that this was the critical, fundamental, basic need, that without doing this, we couldn't do anything else. We can't move forward in any bigger way. And I know that you've aggressively and creatively looked at the ways that we could bring together resources to fund this. And so for that, I applaud you, and this is going to be one of the most important projects for moving people in the entire region, bar none. So I'm grateful that we're moving on with this, and great work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you, and I'll echo Commissioner Kemp's comments, because you have done a great job of bringing this issue forward. Over the years, however, we did have an agreement with PSTA to use their maintenance yard until we get this done, or to share in using their maintenance facility for the work that needs to be done, which was a creative way of helping address the fact that our maintenance facility is so outdated that it actually is causing a problem. So thank you very much for putting this together and making sure that we can robustly move our goal for what will ultimately at some point in time be an expanding transit system. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's critically important that we have this maintenance yard for being able to address that. As it pertains to this particular issue, it makes sense that we would move to outsourcing some of this program management, because it is complicated. But we are going to have many, many more. So in the structure of which how HART is identifying its skills, resources, and people, I recognize that at some point in time we will probably need a program manager that actually manages a whole lot of projects going forward. Well, whereas we don't have them all right now, but I would anticipate that you'll be bringing some of the skill sets that we would rely on in this contract in-house at some point in time. Is that my understanding?
So yes, a couple of things. I'll cover your last question first, and then the first statement I'll address second. So internally, we do have very competent internal folks in our program management group. They're PMP certified. They handle the lion's share of our capital needs today. Because of the scope and scale of this project, we need someone who really has the expertise to handle this type of project. Our team, and as you're well aware, HART has not had an effort this large in a very long time. So a part of what I would like to happen in this contract with the program management firm is to also have some training associated with the contract, so that our team, first, HART will be leading the effort. So we'll have a project manager on our side from our PMO division, who will be the point person with the consultant. And then a part of the process I'm hoping for is that we will shore up additional skills within our organization, so that as we go through this project, we're building those skills internally as well. And that's typically if you design the contract in a way that it's not that you're giving things away, but it's more of a collaborative effort, that you're working with the vendor and they're seeing our staff as an extension of their staff, and we're working together and gaining the skill sets. That's how it's going to be a positive for the organization. But, to respond back to the question that Councilmember Schisler asked earlier, we will have to probably hire additional staff. This will be a full-time job for several folks in our PMO office for the next couple of years. So that will require us to backfill some folks to do our day-to-day project management activities. So I would say it's going to be a new way of doing business, but I'm very excited that we have capable folks here who do have the capacity to be able to jump in and get the job done. I have no concerns related to that in this department. For your first statement about the MOU, I just wanted to give a point of clarification. So that MOU that we have, that there is one, and I'm unaware if the whole board is aware of this, but there is an MOU between HART and PSTA. It's been executed 4 times. The 4th time it was executed was November 3rd of 2020. In this MOU, it basically states that on a high level, that HART and PSTA will collaborate pretty much across all of the functional areas within the organization. The tone of the MOU is more that HART and PSTA will identify opportunities where we could consolidate services. So that's one of the items that's listed in the MOU. As far as the specific areas that they identify that we could collaborate or then consolidate, heavy maintenance facility is listed. However, the specificity around how we work in those spaces is not clearly articulated in the MOU. So for example, it does not say in the MOU that HART can use the heavy maintenance facility for maintenance work. However, it does say that one of the functional areas that we should look at collaborating on is a heavy maintenance facility. Okay. So just, to quickly state that we have a union, 2 unions here at HART. PSTA has a union, but they're different unions. We're governed by the CBA, a collective bargaining agreement, which it would be extremely difficult to take our vehicles and send them over to PSTA, where our mechanics are covered under a collective bargaining agreement that allows them to work on our vehicles. And PSTA has a totally different union shop. So there's certain things that we do work together collaboratively that does not have those kinds of, I would say, challenges. So for example, the Flamingo, we were able to work on Flamingo. That's listed in the MOU, but that is more on an administrative level. That's looking at a contract and how we can work together in one contract to execute a project that would be beneficial to both agencies. That being said, I did have a meeting last Monday with Brad Miller, and we're going to work on crafting a new MOU that has more specificity around what exactly it is that we're agreeing to work together on, so that it is not as nebulous as it is currently, because everything is in there. So it basically says, everything HART does, PSTA can agree to do, or HART can agree to do everything PSTA does, and that wasn't the intention of the MOU. So we're going to work on, instead of extending for the 5th year, which would have been executing another agreement in November, we're going to work on drafting a new MOU to bring back before all of you to ensure that it accurately reflects where we'd like to move in our collaborative regional approach.
Thank you so very much for that clarification, because it gets thrown around a lot, and I think having your management skill sets is paying off every day. So thank you very much for bringing that and for your response. I appreciate the information. It's very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions anymore? All right, Ms. Pettit, would you mind taking the vote by name and announce the vote result, please?
Director Castor?
Yes.
Director Frazier?
Yes.
Director Hudson?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Knight?
Yes.
Director Myers?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schussler?
Yes.
Director Vieira?
Yes.
Chair Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. LeGrand, for single-handedly answering all the questions. We appreciate that.
That's why I'm here.
Thank you. All right, that concludes the approval of action items. We're moving to number 6, sole source procurement and one-time deviation from procurement manual. Ms. LeGrand, we will report on the sole source awards and deviations from requirements of the procurement manual. I'll hand it back over to you again.
Okay, thank you. This will go pretty quickly. First, you're going to see some duplication. It's going to seem like it's redundant. I think it may have been with you, Chair Williams, that I asked staff, why does this show up twice? But the first section is showing us the actual award contracts for this fiscal year, which started October 21. And then you'll see year to date, but since it's just 1 month, that's why it's exactly the same. So when I asked the question, I was like, aha, I understand now. Typically, it doesn't look this way. So what we have for October are 2 sole source awards. One was for media offsite storage, and the other was for our procurement contract manager to go through. These are ongoing expenses, and again, our transparency is to share with you, even though it's below the $100,000 mark, just so that you can have a running tally of our sole source awards. So these are the 2 that we had for October. Yes.
I'm just curious, as an ardent foe of paper, what do we store off? What do we store offsite, and do we have to store it offsite?
Oh,
Yeah.
so we have a lot that we store off-site. So based on if it's anything that came through federal dollars, we have to hold on to those documents.
It's a retention requirement,
So
yeah.
we retain all of those and we send them off-site. And there's a lot that we have to keep on-site for a specific period of time. But as soon as we hit that date, we put those things in boxes and send them away because it's a lot.
Thank you, Director Hudson. Thank you, Ms. LeGrand. Are there any other questions online?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to the Chief Executive Officer's report.
Okay, that's
You
going to be
again.
very
Thank you.
brief, and I kind of talked about this already just through our conversation going through the action items, but I did want to take the opportunity today to formally thank all of the partners, those of you around the room. I've spoken to you all individually as well as collectively about really understanding the importance of moving this heavy maintenance facility forward. I know some of us have had conversations with the Hillsborough delegation. I've gone up to Tallahassee to have conversations with the governor's office. We've talked to our partners here, but the reality is, in order for us to put more service on the street, we have to have a facility that'll accommodate more vehicles. In order for us to be able to improve on our bus stops and shelters and be able to keep them maintained, we have to have a facility that allows us to store more of the equipment that's needed so that our staff can go out there and do the work. In order for us to transition from diesel to CNG to electric, we need to have a facility that not only can accommodate the vehicles that we're looking to purchase, but also one that is agile enough. And you don't usually talk about agility in something that's static, right, a building, but it needs to be something that's designed in a way that we can transition from one fuel source to another, recognizing that this space is changing rapidly. Electric is the hot thing today, but who knows, it might be hydrocell or something else. We need to build a facility that'll allow us to be able to adapt to the changes in the environment. And some of you have heard this story, but when I started here, my first week, that first Friday, I spent the entire day at the maintenance facility, and I met so many great people. And it was during the real COVID time where you were really asking people not to be inside, don't be in the break room, really keeping people distant. And I was walking around, and I saw people with smiles under the masks. And we know what that looks like, right? We all know what a smile under a mask looks like and a scowl under the mask looks like. And they had smiles under the masks, right? And then I walked around and looked beyond the smiles and just started looking around, and I realized that this was not a space that I could feel comfortable knowing that people who work in an organization with me that I'm the leader of have to come in every morning, and it doesn't seem like it's a priority that they should have a place that's really nice. And I'm going to an office on 7th Avenue, and it's nice. And they're going to a facility on 21st, and it's less than. And this has been something that has been heavy on my heart for a long time, and I'm just super, super, super fortunate to work with such great people. And we're not always going to see eye to eye. We saw that today, and I think that's the beauty of the space that I'm occupying. It's not about having everybody jump on the bandwagon. That's not authentic. It's authentic to have disagreements. It's authentic to hear people say, well, I wish you had done this differently. And it allows us to continue to move forward and do the right thing for the community, as well as for, individuals as yourself, making sure you're constantly holding yourself to a standard that is really based on what's important to you, not only what's important to the community. And I would say that getting together and within a couple of months to be able to put together $75 million in hand to move this facility forward is the best thing that I could ever ask for. If today was my last day, it'd be my happiest day, because I can at least say that I was able to do this for the community, for those who wait at bus stops waiting for the bus to come, for those who work here, who are coming into a facility that is not ADA compliant, that you have a hip replacement and you have to rely on colleagues to help you up the stairs. You're not quitting, you're still coming and you're asking for help. This, to me, is something that we need to fix. It has to be a priority, and I'm just so fortunate and honored to work with those of you here in the room, with the staff in the back of the room, with the partners that may be listening. I'm going to shout you out, Ming Gao, Beth Alden, those who sat around the table and helped me to figure out a way to make this happen. Bonnie Wise at the County Commission, who had to put, skin in the game, literally, especially you, Mayor Castor, working with us to figure out how we could bridge that last gap to get the funding that's required to move this forward. And then HART staff, for us to really look into our budget and figure out where are the dollars and how can we move them around to make this happen. So I know we're running late today, but I just wanted to tell you all thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to make this project a reality. And I'm looking forward to seeing this thing actually be built. So thank you.
I think that calls for a round of applause.
I know.
Thank you, Ms. LeGrand. Very committed and passionate response. And thank you for looking out for people. And that's what we think jobs are about, equipment and buses and so forth. It's all about people, and you just illustrated that. Thank you very much. All right, I have no report after that. Moving to number 9, General Counsel's report, please.
Good morning to everyone, and actually this is kind of a good time to talk about moving forward, because in January we have the opportunity to select for both our internal and external committees, as well as chair and vice chair of this board. So what is in front of you is a description and discussion of that process. We've been through it before, so I'm not going to go into detail about what it says, as well as a preference survey, which Lena is asking you get back to her as soon as possible, but no later than December 17th, 2021, so that to make the process go smoother. That being said, with this item on the agenda, Director Johnson did contact me to ask me a specific question as it relates to what's the Hillsborough County Metropolitan Planning Organization and the appointment for that. It is now the TPO, just for those of you who are paying attention. But I'll ask Mr. Johnson to go ahead and just discuss what we had discussed, and just so you have that information moving forward.
Madam Chair.
Director Johnson, you're recognized. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Mandel. So what I was really trying to get at when I was asking the original question was, currently it's a board member is actually appointed to the TPO to represent HART. And when I started kind of taking, and as an alternate to the TPO, obviously reading, the materials, it kind of came to, I just kind of figured out for myself that I was looking at the membership of the TPO, and one of the things that I noticed on here was that all of the CEOs of the, I guess, more of the transportation-centric organizations, like you have Joe Lopano at the airport, Paul Anderson from the port, Joe Wagner from the Expressway Authority. One of the things I just wanted to be able to, I asked Ms. Mandel was, is there anything that would prohibit us from asking Ms. LeGrand to be able to possibly be on there? I know that would be something, Ms. Mandel, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, it would just be a normal appointment as we would be going through the appointments process in January. So that was the gist of my question, but I think that my opinion is at some point in January when we do go through the appointment process that it might be an idea for us to possibly appoint Ms. LeGrand to that, so that way she is at the table with the other CEOs in the Hillsborough County area. I think it would be a good opportunity for her, especially now that she's coming up on a year, I think, within the organization. So that was the really kind of the background on why I asked Ms. Mandel to take a look at that for me.
And if I could
Yes,
just
thank you.
Respond to what I was able to identify. I looked at our board rules of procedure. I looked at all of the background documentation, for the creation of HART, to ensure there was nothing in there that required it to be a board member versus having the CEO or somebody else serve in that capacity. I also looked at the rules for the MPO and did contact Cameron Clark, who's the attorney for the TPO now. And we both looking at the rules and found that there was nothing in the rules of the TPO that prohibit an appointment of the CEO versus it being a board member. In fact, what it uses the terminology of officer, which both the CEO and all members of this board be considered officers, which is different than, just for information, than a general purpose local government such as the county or the city, which does require it to actually be a member of the elected board. So as you're going through this, if that's a decision point that you all want to make in January, that certainly can be part of your decision making in terms of your appointment process. So I did want to give that opportunity to have you all know that information now, so that way when you're looking at this, you could go ahead and make the decisions you choose to make in January as we go through that process. And I'm certainly able to answer any other questions you may have as it relates to either the process for appointments, this particular appointment, or anything else we need to consider moving forward.
Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. I just want to thank you, Director Johnson. I think it's hard for people to analyze that way, so that was perceptive, I think. But having sat on the MPO for 4 years, I've frequently wondered about it. It didn't really make sense to me. I felt HART was underrepresented by not having its presence there, as you state, with the other CEOs of the other agencies. And I'm not sure how that evolved that way, because, I think one of the important things on the MPO is to kind of have that knowledge that, we have the director of the Expressway Authority, the Port Authority, the Airport Authority on there, and kind of have that depth. That's, I think, probably what somehow the original intent. But, and it's funny because we're the only, it's just HART. And I also, the Planning Commission also, I think, does the same thing, which I don't think really makes sense in terms of, being able to extend the information that we could use on the MPO, that depth of knowledge that certainly I don't have, or, that we can get from that. So I think that would be a good thing for us to consider moving forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Thank you. I actually am really glad you brought that up because, to your point, we're in the process as an organization really developing a strategic plan. And where the planning and transportation planning for Hillsborough County, as well as within the region, as we partner with our surrounding counties through the efforts of the TMA, the Suncoast Planning Alliance, as well as the TBARTA. In that effort, we are looking long distance and short distance on how our transportation needs evolve. Having, as we do with our other sister agencies that are part of the mix of transportation at the table, is important. And I also wondered why HART's CEO wasn't there. And that may be because, honestly, we didn't really consider transit part of our transportation plan, and that era is over. So I agree that it would make sense. I do think it would be wise to also have an alternate position to back the opportunity to make sure HART is always at the table in the event that scheduling becomes difficult. I know that oftentimes when we do have an alternative position for our other MPO members, or TPO rather, it's possible for the CEO to be represented by someone within their organization. So I would like to entertain the idea that we recommend that the primary position for representation on the Hillsborough County TPO actually be our CEO. So I really like that idea. So.
Thank you. Director Knight, you're recognized.
Again, thank you. And I think it was some great information. And I also agree that our CEO should be on it as well. And also wouldn't mind at this point making a recommendation that follow up on it. And hopefully the mayor on it too, because when I hear on this type of, advancement, the Washington, Maryland area working in conjunction and how they do things, I think that would be a great idea that should be up as well.
Thank you. Ms. Mandel.
And yes, what I was going to just say is procedurally with the survey, that would be appropriate to, that's why I wanted to give you the information today, and I thought it was a good time to talk about this, because what you can do is as you are filling out your survey, go ahead and you can even indicate that, even though it's not yourself on the survey, that's your preference, but I will also say we'll make the appointments, those won't occur until January, so that would be the appropriate time to make any appropriate motions as it relates to that. But again, I'll ask on Lena's behalf, can you get this back to her as soon as possible? But no later than December 17th, and I appreciate your time on that.
Thank you.
And I think I have a second item as well.
Yes, thank you.
Item 9B is the second and final reading of the revision to the HART board policy as it relates to the travel policy. We've gone over this several times, so unless you have any questions, I'll just ask that you go ahead and take an action to approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve action item?
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve Resolution R2021-1259, and by Councilman Schisler, and second by Director Knight. Ms. Pettit, will you please take a vote and announce the result, please?
Director Castor?
Yes.
Director Frazier?
Yes.
Director Hudson?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Knight?
Yes.
Director Myers?
Yes.
Director Overman?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Director Vieira?
Yes.
Chair Williams?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The number 10, HART Board Committee reports are included in the packet under Section 10. Number 11, reports from HART Board representatives are provided in Section 11. You can also find the monthly reports in Section 12. Is there any old business?
May I just wanted to, I know we went through quickly the monthly reports, but when you have a moment, please take a look. We've tried to streamline it. I don't know if you've noticed, we used to have reports just broken down by, I would say, more functional areas, but now we have them categorized based on the actual area of responsibility. So if you notice, we have a transportation and maintenance division, so all the reports associated with metrics for on-time performance or breakdowns, everything will be in that one report. Same with customer experience, finance, and legal. So just wanted to share that. I would say that's old business, but we've been working over the last couple of months to consolidate the reports to make them hopefully more useful. So as you're reviewing them, if there's anything that stands out, please bring that to our attention, and we will work on adjusting that.
Thank you. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I think this is still under old business. Previously, we've gotten a presentation, and I know the Strategic Planning Committee is typically where it starts, and then the board is advised of any updates, on the process of establishing a strategic plan for HART. The original goal was in December of 22, we were going to see a strategic plan. I'd like to request an update at the next committee meeting on where we are with that, what stages of that planning have been achieved or at least developed, and then what the plan is for the remainder of the year. Thank you.
Definitely.
Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized. Oh, thank you. I thought your hand was up. All right, new business. I'll just add that, happy birthday, early birthday, Mayor Castor.
Happy birthday.
All right, this concludes the regular business for today. Everyone, I wish you a happy holiday, And see you in January. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.